new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Click your live stream tab or watch us live on your smart TV at YouTube, WCEG Network. I am Celeste Giordano, your show host, along with my co-host, Sarah Poe, and we're the Global Legacy and Wealth Building for the next hour. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. And last but not least, our disclaimer. The topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. Well, good afternoon, ladies. How are you today?
Good afternoon.
Hello. Good. Sarah, it's so good to see you, and Deborah Fawaz to see you. And I hope both of you ladies had a wonderful and blessed Mother's Day. And I also want to say to Deborah Fawaz that you've been in our thoughts and prayers this weekend because I know you recently lost your mother. So you have been in our thoughts and prayers so much over the last 30 days. We've got a great show lined up today, and we appreciate Deborah Fawaz coming on the show today. And most importantly, Sarah, I am very grateful to have you on the show and to see you and that you're still alive after tax season. I have been reaching out to you and it's like, she's not answering. She must be buried under a pile of tax returns and delayed tax returns that people haven't done on time. So tell us a little bit about Sarah Poe and Poe's Accounting Services and what's been happening.
Well, hi, I'm Sarah Poe with Poe's Accounting Services. We are a small accounting office that we do payroll, bookkeeping, taxes, anything a small business would need. We'd be glad to help you with that. I'll just say that this last tax season, in the last 30 days, I've had more phone calls I've ever had before. We did over 100 extensions, and that means those have all got to be done between now and October 15th. I am already booked out to the first week of June, if that tells you how busy we've been. But I'm blessed. You know, I can't complain. I'm blessed. I'm happy to have the work. I'm happy to help other people with their taxes and their different situations. And I think the pandemic made people wake up, and people are doing them more. They're doing them more instead of waiting 5 to 10 years to do them. So that's good.
Absolutely, Sarah. And I'm looking forward for the second half of the show that we're going to talk about Q1, Q2, and what people need to be doing, to be in line with their finances and their taxes for 2022, and some of the problems and issues that maybe people encountered, and maybe hopefully you have a few gold nuggets, I know you do, to help these people that need some help and need some advice on what to do in 2022. But let's get started because we have a special guest with us. She's not the first time, it's not her first rodeo here on WCEG Network. And we are just really privileged and honored to have Deborah Fawaz with DD Faces. And I was trying to think, Deborah, how long when I first met you, but I know it's been several years, and that we met at a networking event. I believe it was over there at the community center that we met at a networking event that Vicki Welburn did, is what we did. And immediately we had an instant connection right there. And your personality, everything about you is like, this lady's just going to rip me apart with, the way that I dress and things that I do. And I need somebody local in my corner. So, but, I would love for you, before we get started, to tell the audience a little bit about Deborah Fawaz, because a lot's been going on with you personally and professionally. And you have an amazing business. You are what's the word that I'm looking for? You're just you're a professional in your industry and what you do. You're so on point in everything that has to do with image consulting, confidence, everything that has to do with being in front of whether you're speaking, whether you're networking, whatever your brand is, you're on point for that. So tell us a little bit about you, DD Faces, what's been going on, and how our audience can get a hold of you if they're looking to upgrade and upgrade in their self, their personal image, and their brand.
Absolutely. I know that Penny will put my contact information in a place where the audience can get it. You can see all the services that I offer, as well as testimonials and some live videos if you go to my website, which is ddfacesbydeborah.com. So I thought I would just share a little bit of my story very briefly, because as we talk today, you will come to understand what I do, and that will be self-explanatory in that way. I grew up in Illinois. I was the oldest child, 7 years older than my brother, so the only girl. My dad was a minister, and my mom took her role as the minister's daughter very seriously, meaning she felt like she was a reflection of him, and therefore I had to be a reflection of her. My dad was really tall, and my mom was 5'7", and by the time I was 12, I was 5'9". So a couple things are going on there. This was the time of children are seen and not heard, so there weren't babysitters. I was paraded around wherever my family had to minister, which was the hospital, the nursing home, just everywhere. And I was really tall, and we didn't have any money. And so I couldn't go into the store and just buy anything off the rack, which I very much longed to do. And my mom made all my clothes because it was less expensive and they fit me. And she was a fabulous seamstress. She actually made my dad a 3-piece suit in the 70s, if you can believe that. I think they almost got a divorce over it. Stressful. But there was one. But anyway, and so by the time I got to college, I just really longed to, shop, to have enough money to go buy my own clothes and go in and out of a store. By then, we were finally allowed to wear jeans, but they didn't come in longs. They didn't come in talls then. They weren't inseamed. So they were all way too short on me. The other thing that happened is, again, so that I didn't embarrass my family, for my 16th birthday, she took me to Merle Norman. Maybe some of you know that. It's still around today, a freestanding makeup cosmetic store. And I was given a makeup lesson. And it wasn't the kind where you just close your eyes and your face gets painted. It was an actual step-by-step lesson. And I loved it. And I was hooked ever since. I went on to be a special education teacher and consultant, but I always was doing makeup, hair for the neighbors, for my sorority, for the neighbors' kids going to prom and then their wedding, and on it went. And one day I realized that I really liked the service part of working with other women and a few lucky men. I have some men clients. And it was more about that, about teaching people and just like maximizing the impact of their physical presence, which then elevates their personal confidence. It really all works together. So 8 years ago, I created DD Faces, which is way more than about your face.
Absolutely. And I love that story all the time, Deborah, because, it's something that you are passionate about. I mean, you grew up, you were a preacher's kid, and, and we all know what that was like growing up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And then, you went on, you got your degree, you went into special education teaching, and then you went back to your passion, because as a business coach, what I do is a lot of my clients are people that had a career in education or worked in corporate America, and they served their time, but now they had a passion to do something else. And you are phenomenal at what you do with DD Faces and the classes that you teach and the services that you offer. And one thing that you said that when you share that story about Merle Norman, I never had that opportunity to ever be taught how to put on makeup or anything like that. And today we see this all the time where parents are looking for opportunities to have their children that are starting to wear makeup where they're properly shown how to do it so they don't go out there
watch a YouTube video and do whatever is happening there, right?
Exactly. And so I think that's great. And I'm excited today, Sarah, because Deborah's topic is Own the Room, how to network with unstoppable confidence. So can you explain what you mean by own the room?
Sure. And throughout our conversation today, almost everything I say can be applied to a virtual networking or in-person networking. And
Okay.
I think we can all agree that this virtual form of business is not going anywhere. Yes, we're getting back out in the world and connecting again in person, but there are so many wonderful blessings of the virtual networking, which does not include your yoga pants and your fuzzy slippers. Now we're meeting people all over the country and maybe even all over the world, which is a wonderful thing. However, be aware that your competition has now multiplied exponentially, right?
Right.
Most definitely.
It's a busier, more crowded marketplace. And because of that, you have to stand out and you have to be memorable. And that's what I stand for. You will hear me say the word memorable repeatedly in any conversation we have or any meeting with the client or any of my talks to groups. It's about being memorable in a positive way. And that's where it starts. So as a business owner, we want to make sure that you just don't blend in. You have to stand out in some way. It's not just about hair and makeup. It's not about the label of your clothing or how much money you spent on your outfit. So how do you own it when you get in that room, whether it's the Zoom room or a luncheon, a business meeting in the evening, the Chamber of Commerce, any of it? You appear interesting, maybe even fascinating. You appear under control. You look happy to be there and you look engaged. I like to tell people to create a little curiosity about yourself so that people want to get to know you more, which leads us through the business conversation, which Celeste as a business coach just completely owns this, from the first time you meet someone to the first impression to having some kind of interaction and connection, and then the follow-up to schedule more time where you really get to know each other. But if you don't pass that little first impression being kind of interesting or fascinating, you may not get to that cup of coffee the next time. So that's why I say, don't blend in, don't tell everything in the first minute, and we'll talk about that a little later, about yourself. Save a little. It's not all about how you look. It's about how you are being.
You know, Sarah, that is so true. And I'd just like to make a comment before Sarah gives a question here. This morning, I'm up here in Kentucky, Cincinnati area, and I went to Leading Ladies of Northern Kentucky, Michelle Lorms. We had her on the show, Sarah, not too long ago. And they're working with us for May is National Foster Children Month, and working with us to give backpacks up here in Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati, as well as Atlanta. Well, this morning was 1 hour and it was a speed networking. And so anyways, I sat there, and every time I go to one of these things, they all say, well, you start. I said, no, you start, because I want them to talk about themselves.
Mhm.
And I want them to tell me all about themselves. And I ask questions to get them to respond that will give me all the information I need to know. And I want you to know, Deborah and Sarah, this afternoon when I got back, so I think I had 5 people that came around that I sat with, that I spoke, because I was sitting still. I had invitations on LinkedIn from all 5 of those people with an email message wanting to connect and have a conversation. And I'm not saying that I was memorable, but I will say that I didn't speak about myself. It was all about them.
You make them feel important.
Absolutely, Sarah. Absolutely.
We're going to talk about that today too, about being a good listener. There is so much research out there that proves that if you ask good questions and let the person talk about themselves, when they walk away from you, their perception is that you like them. Therefore, they want to be in your presence again.
Absolutely.
Because who's everybody's number one person? Yourself, right? You like to talk about yourself. You like people to know who you are and interact with you. And so you've done all that by making them feel comfortable, answering those questions, learning about themselves, or you learning about them. That's the number one thing.
Absolutely. So Sarah, you got a question for Miss Deborah?
Yeah, so Deborah, so why is network important?
So business owners typically use 2 different strategies, especially entrepreneurs, to grow their business. One is networking, which is a way to meet new people, expand your network, get connected to more people, which then those people in your A circle, then they invite you to other events and you meet their friends and colleagues, the B circle, and on it goes. Especially if you have reinvented your business, you're rebooting, maybe you're changing careers or companies, then you really have to start there. The other way that business people expand is through referral program. But if you're new or you're doing something a little different, your referral program isn't real established yet because you may not have that many clients, right? So when you're new, networking is the way to expand who you know and what they know. And then you get some clients and then your referral program builds. If you're really experienced, you might back off on your networking a little and rely more on your referral program and have a sophisticated referral program where you reward your clients for referring you.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And having a referral program. Sarah, do you have a referral program?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I give people $25 anytime they refer me.
Absolutely.
I have a little slip they can bring in so they can prove and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to tell another story, Deborah, on what you just said about why is networking important, and talking about it. Really, you're talking about lead generation and building relationships. I had a client in April that went with me to a Camp Amplify banquet. We had the Women of Community Impact had a table there. I don't know, we had 8 or 10 people there. And anyways, coming to that, and I already had talked to her about meeting some people there and getting some new leads, because every now and then you've got to freshen up your lead base. Otherwise, you're just going from the same pool over and over. So by coming to that Camp Amplify, which was a nonprofit gala, she ended up getting 3 or 4 leads that night. And then she was invited to another event that Friday, which was a coffee thing that they are opening up, or they're in Brazelton at the community center there or something. So she got an invitation there, went there and got 6 more leads there that week. And then she ended up somewhere. Anyway, she ended up with 12 leads that week because she went to 2, by starting by 1 gala, they got an invitation to another gala and something else, and ended up with 12 leads, Deborah, that week, which was all brand new leads.
Right, which is fabulous. And the other thing about those leads is not every one of those leads is going to be your client, but they might know somebody who should be or could be your client, right? So there's the next introduction. Or maybe they will be a collaborator and they'll work with you similar to what Celeste and Sarah and I are doing today, working alongside each other in complementary types of businesses and situations. So you could meet somebody that you could end up doing an event with, or hosting an event together with. So it isn't just about getting a paid client, it's about expanding your business in so many different ways.
Well, and that's so true, Sarah. Just another example. Back in April, Len and I met over there at Tradewinds Coffee Shop to meet our insurance agent. And when we were there, a gentleman came up that is a member of DBA, and he's a foster parent. And so I struck up a conversation with him and asked him about being a foster parent, what were some of the things that was important. So he shared that with us. But also, just so happens, the insurance person we were meeting with was on the board of DBA, and I'd never met the gentleman before, and we were talking, and he said, "Would you like to be our guest speaker in August, because you're talking about servant leadership? I would love for you to come talk about servant leadership." Had I never been with Lynn and went to that coffee shop, meeting an insurance agent, also meeting a foster parent that gave us some great ideas to fill these backpacks with. I mean, this is what it's all about. Visibility is king. Is that not true, Deborah and Sarah?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
And
Yeah,
the more
this
visible
kind of
you
plays
are,
in. Go ahead. Okay, so this question kind of plays into some of what we've been talking about, but it more describes me. If you're an introvert and dislike events, right? I'm definitely an introvert. That's the reason why I sit in front of computers all day. They don't yell at me. They don't tell me my hair looks bad. So what if your little bra strap's showing? They don't care. But that is a hard thing for me because I am definitely an introvert.
and when I first met Celeste, she said the same thing to me. She said, "I'm never going to be fascinating, Deborah, because I'm an introvert." And I said, "I respect your opinion and I strongly disagree with you. You don't have to be the most extroverted person in the room to create curiosity and be a little fascinating. You give somebody a little taste of who you are and what you do, they're probably going to want to know more about that, especially in the way that you deliver that little taste." So the first thing I say to people that are like, don't like events, is bring a friend. Go together with somebody. It gives you just a little more confidence and security walking through the door. Now, having said that, don't spend the whole event only talking to your friend, right? That's just kind of to get in the door. Maybe the two of you approach a conversation circle together so you're not alone. A lot of people tell me that feels really awkward. You walk in the luncheon, people are standing and chatting, but everybody's in a little cluster. How do you politely enter that conversation or that group, without feeling like the outsider or the kid that's left out on the playground, that type of thing? So go with a friend, and then be a good listener. Celeste really already covered this. And so I tell people, go ahead and come up with like 3 or 4 questions, put them on a note card, keep them in your car. So it just kind of becomes a part of your conversation style and content. And these would be questions that do not have a yes or no answer. Because if Celeste says to me, "Have you been here before?" I could just say, "Yeah." Now she's struggling because she just hit the dead end, right? But if she says, "I haven't been here before. What is it you like about this group?" "Deborah, where else do you network? I'm always looking for other places to go," which I strongly recommend every time you meet somebody new, if it's not in the first conversation, it's in the coffee conversation. Find out where they go and why they like it, and who's there. What is the audience like? Because you're always looking for the next best place to network yourself, right? When I told you I was a teacher, and when I left the school system, I was able to start doing some networking because my time was available and I didn't know where to find it. So, I went on Dr. Google, and there was groups called Meetup at the time. That was a real big deal. Anybody remember Meetup?
I remember that.
And so there was a group in my town. It was only about 5 miles away, and they were meeting in a restaurant in the lounge at 5:30. And I got there and I'm like, I'm walking in a bar by myself at 5:30. I don't think I can do it. And I literally freaked myself out, and I wanted to leave. I phoned a friend, and she's like, oh my gosh, just go in there, walk around. You might know somebody. And if it's uncomfortable, just leave. And so I did go in there, and you know what? It wasn't my people. It was more men than women. And they were like, oh, you sell lipstick? I'm like, no, not really. But that was my very first networking experience. I wish I had a friend to go with me. It would have been more comfortable. But I didn't do my research ahead of time about who would be there, or talk to anybody that had gone before. So I kind of put myself in that situation. So I understand about that being uncomfortable.
So I'd like to comment on this, Sarah, because, Deborah, what you just said, bring a friend, is so, so important. I have two separate stories with both of you. When I retired and started my consulting business, and the very first networking event I went was Heart of Gwinnett. And the very first person that I met, and who is a lifelong friend and a sister and a partner, was Sarah Poe. I met Sarah Poe at the very first one. And we had a great conversation. And I mean, that's the beginning of a lifelong friendship. And we've partnershiped in businesses and things of that nature. And I will never forget that. I know exactly where we're at. I saw where she stood up and what she said, and I said to her. The other thing is, Deborah, is, so many times people don't bring a friend. And really, when you're networking, you have a moral obligation to bring somebody with you, because I have that saying, two hands make more noise than one. But like you say, it does build confidence. And I had an opportunity to speak down in Buckhead last year in the fall, and I had never been to this networking event. And you and, no, it wasn't you. It was two other people, Lisa and Joan, that went with me. And I'm going to tell you, we left that night with just an abundance of leads, and we didn't even spend any time speaking to each other because we were out networking. And I don't know if funner is the right word, but it was fun.
Absolutely.
With that.
Absolutely. It is social.
So
go ahead. Sometimes those experiences, even if we think we're an introvert, it does build your confidence. And if you're having fun and people are paying attention to you, then you are most likely to do that activity again.
Absolutely. And if our audience and our listeners are listening here today, if you run a networking event, I highly encourage you, every time you hold a meeting, and you're given an introduction, or you're given a close, or you're talking, you should get consistent with always inviting your guests that are there, to remind them to bring a friend at your next event. And you want to talk about a networking group growing exponentially. You consistently bring that up and invite and ask your people that are coming to bring a friend. And then I also challenge you that anybody that brings a friend, your name's going to go on a hat and do a giveaway. And you talk about going from 10 or 20 people to a networking event to 40, 60, or 80 in 60, 90 days. That will do it.
Yeah, that's right.
So Deborah, what does unstoppable confidence look like? Does it look anyway?
Well, that's a good question. Let me tell you what it doesn't look like, especially at networking. It doesn't look like you're selling. I think
Yes.
a lot of people make that mistake, and I think sometimes they make it because they don't know how to network. No one really teaches us this unless you're involved in this kind of conversation, or you seek it out, or you take a course online about it. So when you just meet somebody and you shove your business card in their face, that is not networking, and that's not building a relationship. And even though we know we're all there to sell ourselves and ultimately our services, our products, whatever it is, that's not how you open. You don't have a first date and ask for, you got to build
Okay.
a relationship.
All right, we don't want to get in Facebook jail now, okay?
Didn't say anything. I just left it open. So try to avoid, and a lot of us do that out of anxiety, meaning Celeste says to me, "Hi, what's your name?" And I say, "Hi, I'm Deborah. Who are you?" "Celeste." And she says, "What do you do?" 3 minutes later, I've told her everything I do, how I do it, why I do it. That is not what she was asking me. Okay. And that's not confidence. That's anxiety. Like, I don't know what to do here. So I'm just going to prattle on and on and on and sell you on how wonderful I am.
But you are wonderful.
We talk about my mom could go in a room. It doesn't matter if it was bunco, a church potluck, someone else's baby shower, and she could work that room like the mother of the bride. And she wasn't even the host. She just went up to every single person and introduced herself. And she might have just said, "I'm so glad you're here today," and move on to the next person. But everybody in the room was greeted by her. And so, if you can try, if your networking event isn't too terribly large, and just try and greet every person. And when they say, "What do you do?" Because that always comes next, doesn't it? Whether you're at a cocktail party or you're at a networking event, we all develop our promotional, our speech, our infomercial, right? I would encourage you to have several different lengths of your infomercial. So, because sometimes they give us a minute, okay? And then pull that down to a 30-second one. Sometimes they'll tell you online when you research the group that you'll have 30 seconds to talk about yourself. But if a whole lot of people show up, then the leader of that group is going to have to shorten your infomercial time. So you might have 10 seconds. Okay. So, for instance, if somebody says to me, "Hi, Deborah, what do you do?" I say, "I work with men and women to elevate their physical presence." And that's all I say. And they might bite on that and say, "Well, what does that mean?" And I'll say, "Well, typically when I work with a client, I do their color analysis first. Have you ever had your colors analyzed?" Now it's back to them, getting them to talk. I don't read my website to them of everything I do, because in their brain, they're checking off, "I don't like that. I don't need that." And they don't even know who I am yet. I want to have another conversation with them one-to-one to find out who they are. And then I can talk more about how do I elevate men and women's physical presence. So create your long promotional first. I even think that's worth spending money on hiring somebody to help you, a copywriter, a business coach, somebody that specializes in that. And then you can take that and keep shrinking it down so you have almost 4 different versions of what you do.
Absolutely. Sarah, what Deborah has said is so important. People don't care how much you know, do they know how much you care? And I have a dear, dear friend, and Deborah, I think I've told you this numerous times, that you remind me of my best friend, Shirley Daniel. And you know, she is a memorable person. And she does exactly what your mother did. And this is so true as individuals when we go into a networking group, or we go into a room, is that you are introducing yourself and you are more interested in that person and getting to know them, you know, and asking questions about them. And it's not about you. You know, you hear me say this in my workshops all the time, is I never want to talk about myself. You know, today at a speed networking event, I never introduced myself or my 30-second, I had 2 minutes. I just kept wanting to know about these people. And that's the other thing, is when you're in a room, you know, you want to have 3 or 4 conversations that of people that you want to meet, and do your due diligence of who you're looking for. And like you say, you can go to the networking group, maybe see who's in there, read some bios. But you know, what your mother did and what my friend Shirley did, and I've watched her, and I tried to emulate it to the best of my ability, is when I'm in a room, is to go in there and just to meet people and pay somebody a compliment, have something nice to say, and genuinely care about that other person. And now you are memorable, and they're going to look you up and want to know more about you. Is that not true?
It's absolutely true. When I
And
work with my clients in my VIP day, we spend a lot of time talking about body posture and the content of your conversation and eye contact and all those things that probably sound like they're maybe too drilled down or too many like details. No, you don't have to be perfect, but there is an art and a science to building
yes,
a relationship and making connections with people. And if you practice that and refine it, it will serve you well.
Well, I try to practice that every time I go to a drive-through or grocery store, something along those lines. I try to make a, a compliment to the person who's serving me in those things. And because those people, 9 times out of 10, see the worst of people.
Mhm.
So if you can make them smile or joke or laugh or whatever it is, it only helps them. So I try really hard to do that when I'm in that environment.
absolutely. Sarah, you got a question for Miss Deborah?
Yeah. So how many networking events do you recommend attending?
I think honestly, less is more. And here's why I say that. I started out being so excited about this whole process that I spent so much time in the car. We live in Atlanta, and there's a highway around Atlanta that literally circles the city called 285. And I swear I would just be on that highway and then get off at this exit and go to that meeting and get back on and then go to a lunch, and then maybe I'd have a coffee and, you know, because I had time to kill, because now I'm an hour and a half away from home, and then go to the dinner meeting. Well, if you do that several times a week, I had a pile of business cards on my desk this tall. 4 months later, I don't remember the people. I've never called them for a follow-up. So when people ask me how many, I say, look at your schedule and your lifestyle. And after you schedule a networking event on your calendar, you write some like 2 hours of follow-up time the next day. Okay. Every day that goes by, that lead gets cooler and cooler, and they've forgotten who you are. And I'm not great at this. I know it and I can teach it, but you have to be really committed to that, to the follow-up. And part of the follow-up is I have a spreadsheet. I put the person's name in there, and the first column is where I met them. Okay. Because I'm not going to remember that. And then the next column is something memorable about them. Maybe Celeste and I talked about Italy or something, and I know that she, you know, goes there every year. So I'm going to try and write that down. So if I run into her 3 months from now, I can start a conversation with, where are you traveling this summer? I know you love Italy. She'll be impressed that I remembered that. I wouldn't remember it if it didn't end up on my spreadsheet. And then I have a column that says LinkedIn, Facebook, email, newsletter, Instagram. So I invite all of them to connect with me on social media, and I track that if they answer me, or it's just a check mark. And the email just says, and it's a template. So I take out Sarah's name and put in Celeste's name and where I met you. Hey, Celeste, great to meet you last night at Wise Working Women. Hope to see you next month. I hope you found the event valuable. Love to have coffee with you sometime. Can we connect on LinkedIn?
There you
But
go.
it's a template, I save it in a file.
Yes.
So I'm not recreating all this work.
Automation. Yes.
Thank you.
And I do something like that with my clients here when they come in. A couple came in here and I said, "Oh, wow, you got new glasses." And the wife looked at me and goes, "You really remember that?" I'm like, "Yeah." I remember, I see their faces. I may not remember their name, but I see their faces and I remember things about them. Like I had a bus driver come in today and Gwinnett County had some problems yesterday with the buses. I'm like, "So you had an exciting day yesterday." So
Yeah.
it's good to remember those things. So when they come in, it makes them feel good that those little things about them.
Absolutely. You're validating them. And if that's your gift, that you can remember faces and connect those stories, then really use that. That's wonderful. Other people are really good at names. They might forget your story, but they see your name tag and it's there. So use your gift.
Absolutely. So Deborah, how do you choose which events to attend?
So you have to do a little research. You have to talk to people. You can, research it on the web, on their site. Maybe you'll see a picture of somebody and then you can contact them personally and say, "Oh, I see you go to Beaufort Business Alliance. Tell me, who goes to that and what's the event like?" So you want to figure out where. You've already figured out who your ideal client is. And if you don't know, you need to know, because I struggled with that for a while. My ideal client is just not anybody with skin, hair, and clothes. It's way more refined than that. So not just any client, but where's your ideal client and where does that audience go? Where do they visit? Are they daytime people? Are they nighttime? Are they early morning, before work people? So figure that out. Where's your audience? Figure out your travel situation. How far are you willing to travel? How much time will that take out of your day? Even if the event's 90 minutes long, you could be gone 4 hours, right? Time is money. So you have to prioritize that. So the audience, the travel, how much time is involved? How much does it cost? Do you get a meal with it? Do you pay annually? And then if you're not a member, you pay a guest fee and you buy your meal. So you need to figure that out, because it's really easy to throw a lot of money at the wall in networking and you don't know what your return on that investment is. That's another column on your checklist.
On your spreadsheet. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. And then the last thing I like to look at is it educational? A lot of networking groups have somebody that does a presentation, and it could be somebody from within the group or without the group. And are you even interested in that? Or do you just want to do like Celeste talked about today and have an hour of speed networking where you meet as many people as possible? So those are all different criteria to look at when you're trying to choose where to go. It's really easy now to overbook yourself on virtual networking.
Yes.
You're like, "Oh, I don't have to get in the car and I don't have to pay for a meal." But what about the follow-up?
Well, and it goes back, Sarah, to what Deborah said earlier. Sometimes less is more. If Deborah, you gave so many gold nuggets here, and we're about 10 minutes till 6 here. You gave so many gold nuggets that you and I have talked numerous times about, because I remember when I first met you, every time I spoke with you, you were in the car on the headset. You were going here, you were going there. And I kept saying, are you getting anything out of this? I mean, this has got to be costing you a fortune. But, you have to do your due diligence. Don't get me wrong. People that are putting on networking events, hey, you got to give them a high five that they're taking action. And that's good. But we also have to do our due diligence and make sure that we're getting a good fit. And it has the criteria, like you said, Deborah, are these your kind of people, that you want to do business with? Are you getting some education? Are you getting value out of it? And are you getting a meal, or is there a membership fee or a non-member? And then it goes back, sir, you got another question, I think, that will follow up with this. Why don't you ask that last question, please?
How do you know if networking is working for you?
It's right back to that checklist that I talked about a minute ago. So you're then going to indicate in a column if you had a connection call, and then have you had a sales call. A lot of people get almost all the way through the checklist, and then when it gets to the sales call, they're just hoping the other person will call them. Totally been there, done that. I get it. And then what was the result of that sales call? And is there going to be follow-up, or did they say check back with me in 6 months? Or maybe you got a business partner, or out of that conversation, you're going to co-host an event together or something. And that way, when you get back to your business coach at the end of the year and she wants to see your numbers, you'll have some because they're all on your spreadsheet.
Absolutely. There was another thing that I was going to mention there. And, you don't have to be that person that has to try to go to every networking event, because you're going to go to a bunch of them and you're going to end up with nothing. And you do have to do some research. I mean, you don't want to go meet everybody at the networking event. Who is your ideal client? Do you know who your ideal client is? And research that networking event of the membership, because if they're on Facebook and have a private group and you're in that group, you could see who's in there and you can read their bios. And, are there other people that do what you do? And I hate to say it, but there are some networking events out there that they're a little cliquish. Have you ever been to one that's very cliquish? And if you're not, if there's 3 CPAs in that room, it's like, oh, well, Sarah, you're odd person out here over here. These people are over here. They were here first or something. And so you have to, make sure that, it's a networking group that they have an open mind and a open heart to all the people, because I think that's important.
I think somebody told me once before, when you go to a networking group, only meet 3 people.
Right.
Spend the time with the 3 people. You don't need to meet 10 because you're not going to get anything out of that. Meet 3 people and get to know those people and make coffee dates with those people. So when you walk out there, you got 3 future coffee dates, right? So that you can get to know those people and spend time with those people. To me, that has always worked better for me than try to get to know 10. The most business cards I could get. That does nothing.
Nothing.
Right.
What were you going to say,
Something you
Deborah?
said, Celeste, made me think of this, and then I'll be quiet. And that's another criteria is some networking events are called 1 seat per industry. So if they already have a CPA coming, you can't come as the CPA. And you want to know that before you show up or before you sign up and pay for it. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. They have different dynamics. And so if it's not 1 seat per industry, it's pretty much called open networking, which means 5 realtors could go, no big deal.
Right. Exactly. And, so whether you're a CPA, Sarah, when you network, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be a bookkeeper, an accountant, a CPA at a networking event that you go to. I was at an event today, Deborah. You are a very well qualified image consultant and many dots with that. But there were people there that were considered stylists and this and that, and and that's all good, and they were very, very nice, but there was a lot of different ones. They weren't necessarily an image consultant, but they were stylists. There was a couple of stylists there. There were a couple of people that were business coaches. I run into that all the time, that I go in there, that they're a business coach or a sales coach, and maybe you're the latest one to the group, and that other person's been there for a long time, so everybody gravitates to that other person, and that's not my group, if that's the case. But you just have to just keep networking. Whatever you do, you want to network, you want to be memorable. What else you want to be, Sarah? What are some of the gold nuggets you picked up out of Deborah's talk today?
I think you just got to be yourself, right? Don't try to be something you're not, because that's very hard to manage in that type of environment. I think be yourself. If you're not comfortable in a pair of heels, don't do it, right? Wear some cute flats, right? But I think you just have to be yourself.
Oh, most definitely. You definitely have to be authentic, and you have to keep good stats. And you know me, I'm very, with all my clients, man, I want to see those stats. You're spending this much money in networking. What are the results? What are you getting out of this? Maybe it's not for you. I'm not saying it's a bad networking thing, but if you're not getting any clients, you're not getting asked to speak, you're not meeting new people. I mean, there's only so many times you're going to get me at this event, if that's the case, or maybe somebody else is already there in your field, and you're just batting zero trying to break into the group, So, and a good leader will recognize that, and they will try to offset that if they can, because you want to have, not everybody is going to use the same coach or the same image consultant. You have to resonate. I resonated with Deborah right away, and I've only had one image consultant, and she's in Canada. And then I had a best friend that I consider to be the most memorable person in the world. That was my go-to person. But same thing, like Sarah, as a CPA or bookkeeper. I mean, I've had the same CPA or bookkeeper for 40 years, but that doesn't mean that I'm not interested in learning about other people. And because I'll be a good connector and refer somebody to them. And I think we didn't talk about that. That's a whole nother subject, Deborah. But be a good connector, because maybe it's you don't have an interest in their business, or they don't have an interest in your business, but who do you know that they don't know that you can connect them to? Because there again, you will be memorable again.
Absolutely.
Any closing comments, Deborah, before we close out here?
I don't think so. I would love to connect with any of you. Just hop on my website, and I think the calendar call says maximize the impact of your image, but that's just a way to see when I'm available, and we can talk about anything you want to talk about, or just get to know each other. So take that opportunity. This Thursday at noon, I'm hosting an online networking event through a group in Ohio that Celeste connected me to, and it's called Beautiful Faces Going Places. And you can sit at your computer and eat your lunch or not. And it's only an hour long, and we break out in breakout rooms and just get to know each other a little deeper. So I really enjoy that, and I invite you to join that. There's no fee.
Very much. Thank you so much, Deborah. Sarah, next Tuesday, the 17th, our show is going to have Chris Tarver with Camp Amplify for the first half of the show. The second half of the show, Sarah and I will be doing live Q&A with our audience about what they need to be doing, setting business goals, SMART goals, what they need to be doing with their accounting, their bookkeeping, taxes, anything that you need to be thinking about to grow in 2022. So Sarah, you and I will do that the second half of next week. Deborah, again, we can't thank you enough for being our guest and all the gold nuggets that you shared with our audience. We're very grateful to WCEG Network with Penny Rogers and the board for hosting this opportunity today for our audience and our listeners to educate, motivate, and inform our listeners of how to be memorable and be unstoppable with confidence. I don't know if I said that title right. I'm trying to go off of memory, Deborah, but go right ahead. But, please visit Deborah Fawaz's website. She is a phenomenal image consultant and a confidence person that can help build your confidence. And one thing I love about Deborah is she tells it like it is. She's very frank, fair, firm, and fun. I promise you, she's those 4 Fs. So, ladies, I just wish each of you a wonderful and blessed week. Deborah, thank you for being our guest. Sarah, it's always a blessing to see you and have you as a co-host. And hopefully you can see daylight and get through those stacks of extensions and tax returns. And we'll be back here next Tuesday, the 17th, with Camp Amplify. It's our nonprofit show for the Women of Community Impact. We'll be hosting that with another nonprofit of Camp Amplify. And we just adore Chris and Lisa Tarver and what they stand for in sending underserved and underprivileged children to summer camp, which is near and dear to our hearts. Sarah, any closing comments?
No, I don't. What about you, Celeste? You want to tell us a little bit about you real quick? Do we have a minute?
Well, basically, I'm a master sales strategist and business mentor. And my passion is just being a servant leader and serving and giving back. And I am really having fun this year with our nonprofit of Women of Community Impact. I love my clients that I work with and helping them grow their business by learning, growing, achieving, and prospering so they can leave a legacy. So thank you for asking, Sarah.
Nice.
The ladies, have an awesome week. And Deborah, it is wonderful to see your face.
Thank you. Good to see you too and spend time with you.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys and have a wonderful day. Love you. We'll talk later.